And I'll just give a quick disclaimer today. This could be a little uncomfortable for those of us who consider ourselves church people. But here's what we know, that because of a lot of people out there who are performing awful representations, awful cover versions of what it is to be a Jesus follower. There's many people who've been turned off. There's many people who resist. There's many people who aren't interested in joining in our faith. I recently was having a conversation with a guy in his young 20s, and I was trying to convince him that our church was different than other churches he experienced, and I'd love for him to come to our church. I want to introduce him to some people. We have this great 20s gathering, and I would love for him to come. And here's what he said to me. And I didn't know how to respond. He said, "Hey, here's my hang up with church. My church friends judge me for identifying as gay while they're living with their girlfriends." I don't know what to say to that. And some of you've had similar experiences where you talk to somebody, and some of you are here and you're going, "Yikes, this is the deep end. It's a little early in the sermon." But I can assure you we've locked the doors and you can't get out today. So here's the thing. It turns out he's not alone. A favorable view of Christians is not one of the fundamentals of Christianity, because none of us are a perfect representation. Today, we're continuing our series called The Fundamental List, sort of recovering the essentials of our faith. So far, we started week 1 with this first fundamental that we said is sort of the one that all the others derive from. All the others is sort of a reference point for all the others. Jesus is God's Son and our King, but he came to show us what God's like. In fact, Jesus, our second one, is he came and to illustrate and to demonstrate what God's like. So if you want to know what God's like, you don't even need to look at Christians. And he talked a lot about sin and leaving our lives of sin, walking away from sin. And Jesus defines sin. This is our third on the fundamental list. He defines sin as anything that harms you or harms somebody around you. Number 4, Jesus promised justice in the end. And he invites us to trust him when things aren't right in the meantime. But because of my mercy, I'm going to delay my judgment. And in delaying his judgment, Jesus, as we talked about last time, Jesus died for my sin and for your sin, to reconcile us to God. Here's something you need to know. As it turns out, faith in Christians is non-essential for following Jesus. It's not essential. However, the reason I bring it up today is a lack of faith in Christians is almost universal for non-followers. It matters. It makes a difference. Gandhi, who was a student of Christ, he actually quoted Christ a lot when he was interviewed, and he was asked why he wouldn't convert to being a follower of Jesus. This was his response. He said, "Oh, I don't reject your Christ. I love your Christ. It's just that so many of your Christians are so unlike your Christ." It's along the way, we're going to discover our next fundamental belief. And in order to get there, I want to go back to this number 1. In week 1, we said that this fundamental, Jesus is God's Son and our King, is the reference point for all the rest. And this is the only thing, as we said, that the church has consistently agreed upon in 2,000 years. He said this: the human body, using the body as a metaphor, the human body has many parts, but the many parts make up one whole body. And so it is with the body of Christ. All of you together, the gathering of Christ, you're what's going to represent Christ. Christ passed his baton not to an individual. He passed his baton to a body of believers who exhibit faith by saying, "You're the ultimate authority, and I'm going to surrender my life to you." This was his plan A for how people would experience him and experience his life. The reason is because the church, fundamental number 6, the church is God's agent of transformation, personally, culturally, and globally. The church is how we experience Jesus. And when we experience Jesus in the body, when the body gathers together, because the body gathering together is the representation of Jesus. Remember, that's who he passed the baton to. And so when we gather in the body, we experience the transformational power of Jesus, and we are transformed personally. And as we become more like Jesus, and as we're transformed in the community of the body of Christ, we become agents of cultural and global change in the world around us. It's the way Jesus designed it to work. However, as some of you know, in our world, the gathering is swimming upstream a bit. In fact, in more ways than one, and the current's getting stronger. There's been this recent cultural shift, not just outside the church, but within the church. And many view the gathering or the attending or the gatherings of the church as non-essential. And come on, let's just be honest for a minute. I'm just going to push you just a second. Many of us, if you look at our behavior and our activity, many of us view the gathering or attending the gathering gathering with other believers. We view it, or at least our actions seem to proclaim it as non-essential. So the question we're asking is the church essential? Is it essential? I mean, here's the thing. Is the gathering of the church, is the people attending church, is you showing up at a local body and interacting with other believers, is that essential? And how essential is it? I would tell you, because of the way things are trending, it's more essential than ever. And here's what we know. Our churches won't be imperfect. We're not gonna be perfect, and you know why? Because you're here, that's why. And I'm here, and we're not perfect. But that's not the goal. The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to be continuing to be progressively challenging each other to move forward in our lives and following Jesus, to build each other up, to challenge one another. And we do that as we gather together. That's where we experience the transformational power of Jesus. Is church essential? Of course it is. That's why our mission as a church, our mission is to inspire people to follow Jesus by engaging them in the life and the mission of the local church. We believe the local church is God's transformational vehicle, God's hope for the world. It's how he's delivering his hope to the world. Engagement in the body of Christ is God's special agent, if you will. It's how he's delivering life and hope and meaning to the world around us. He knew we would need each other, and so he didn't leave it up to one person. He passed the baton to a gathering, because active gatherings of believers activate God's transformational power in our world, and miraculous things happen in our lives and the lives of those around us. When we gather and each one plays our part, marriages are transformed. God, through his Spirit, restores families, hearts are mended, addictions are broken, purpose is realized, lives are rescued. Choosing to show up and engage in the life and mission of the church can make all the difference, because the church, this is fundamental. The church is God's agent of transformation personally, culturally, and globally. And I believe each of us will experience the transformation that God has for us. And maybe, just maybe, people's view of Christians, at least in our communities, will be transformed as well.